This is our first training for Action Together Oregon Yamhill Valley chapter. We are super excited that you're all here. What I would like to do is just introduce you to Jen Lynch, who drove down here tonight from Portland. Jen is an activist, an entrepreneur. She's been training activists for many years, and as you can guess, she's been in high demand the past month or so. So I'm just going to let her talk a little bit more about herself, and then we'll just launch right into the training. Okay. So welcome.
Thank you, Lynette. Thank you, Megan. Thank you guys for coming. So my name is Jen Lynch. I am an organizer, and I work a lot on gun violence prevention. I'm the board chair of the Oregon Alliance for Gun Safety. And I've been doing that work on gun violence prevention for about the last 4 years. In my real life, as I like to say, I am a partner at a venture capital fund, and I am a mom of 3. And on December 12th, 2014, I was at work, 2012, like a lot of you, and at my desk, and the news about the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary started to roll across my screen. And like a lot of you, I had to sit down and process that. And I remember clearly thinking a few things. I read a story about a woman who saw another mother pull into the parking lot of a 7-Eleven half a mile from Sandy Hook, get out of the vehicle and run all the way to school. My kids go to school blocks north of where I work, and I could picture myself running up the street. It was really clear. And I remember thinking that day that somebody really had to do something about the problem of gun violence and mass shootings in this country. And in the same thought thinking, oh my gosh, no one's going to do anything. You know, it happens all the time here. No one ever does anything. And in the same moment thinking, oh my God, I should do something about it. And I had never done anything about anything before. I thought being politically active at that point was voting and contributing to political campaigns every now and then, wearing the t-shirt, liking it on Facebook, and I have learned a lot in the last 4 years. And in the last 4 years here in Oregon, the organization that I helped found, the local chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, has grown to more than 85,000 members. We're the nation's 3rd largest chapter. We've passed universal background checks on the sale of every single gun in Oregon, something only 16 states have done. We're only one of a handful of states that have done it since the shooting at Sandy Hook. Every single legislative session since 2013, there have been gun bills. We pushed the very first gun bill to a vote in the Oregon legislature in 17 years. They hadn't voted on a bill since 1997. There was a quick vote in 1999. It was referred to the voters. Anyone who was here remembers that. So we did it. We were activists who learned these tools, worked together, and were patient and diligent and focused, and we have had success. And I strongly believe, I have felt ever since I learned all of these techniques in my first year as an organizer, that this is the answer. This is the answer to everything. All progress comes from being organized, from being strategic, and from being effective. And I wake up every day determined, not depressed, and focused rather than fatalistic about the future of our country. I know what needs to be done, and I feel like it's my job to tell as many of you as possible what needs to be done, so you'll feel just as optimistic and motivated and ready to get going. I know it's been a hard couple of months. Let's just do something for fun. Everybody stand up. Everyone. Okay, now if you canvassed for Hillary around here, so you walked around and knocked on doors for the campaign, or for Bernie, then you can sit down. Okay, now if you phone banked, so you either did it yourself from home or used a call tool, or you went to a group event and you made phone calls for the campaign to any state, you can sit down. Okay, if you held a house party and got your neighbors together and talked about the campaign or any of the, any of the candidates, either here in Oregon or nationwide. What about register people to vote? Did a clipboarding event or anything where you signed up new voters here in Oregon, told them how to change their address? Okay, great. Okay, so you know what? You guys standing up here in good company, right? You're not a small number. You can all sit down now. And this is what it's been like every time I've had one of these meetings. You're all equally pissed about the situation that we are in right now. And it is our job to, again, take that anger and turn it into action. So just so I have a sense of where your heads are, so raise your hand and tell me your name and where you live, and tell me what your top 3 issues are. Go ahead.
Human overpopulation, environmental degradation,
What's your name?
and media disinformation.
Okay, and your name and where you live and top 3 issues. I'm going to call on you if you don't raise your hand. Okay, thank you.
Top 3 issues would probably be public education, reproductive rights, and discrimination.
Okay. Okay.
Top 3 would probably be reproductive rights, gun violence, and sustainable agriculture.
Great. Okay. Okay. Up here.
I would say probably campaign finances, corporate domination, and probably environmental contamination or domination, same thing.
Yep.
Very
Okay.
similar.
I just want to ditto Zach.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Back there.
Climate change.
Yep.
Military, the military domination, and late form capitalism.
Okay.
Health, the health care for everybody. Also Social Security and Medicare for the elderly. And corporate media.
Okay. Okay.
Say reproductive rights, immigration issues, and LGBTQ issues.
Okay. Great.
Immigrant rights and environment and I forgot. Well, I was going to say fake news. I'll just say that.
Okay. Okay. Yep. More media. Okay. Great. Anybody else? Anyone got one they haven't heard yet? Yeah.
Action rights and social justice / discrimination.
Okay. Great. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Media misinformation is a big one.
Yeah.
Democracy will get wiped out with misinformation.
Yeah.
Free trade, flea borders.
Okay. Great. Okay. I feel like I've got a good representation of the things that are stressing you out on my list. So that's good. And we're going to get to the list. Yeah.
Can I add one?
Yeah.
Mental health and homelessness and accountability and low minded.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So let's start talking about action. Who's been to like a Marshall Gans workshop? All right, that's fine. So again, like what I love about this stuff is that it's not new, and it works. So I was lucky enough to get my action training from some folks at an organization called the Center for American Progress, which is a think tank in DC that was set up after the 2008 campaign. Obama was outspent and out-resourced in 2 elections and ran campaigns that were extraordinarily successful. And the reason why they were successful is because there was a team of people that followed the organizing playbook. Maybe didn't have access to all of the digital tools that the Hillary campaign did, and maybe that was to their benefit. They had to organize a few more people in a few more places than they would have if they had had direct targeting. But they used techniques that are simple and that don't require money, and honestly don't even require a lot of time, but are highly effective. And the more people that we can talk to about these very simple techniques, the more comfortable all of you feel actually using them, the better prepared we are when it comes time for all of us to start working as a team. So I'm going to walk through a few political actions that you should be familiar with. We're going to talk about what they are, why you use them and when, and then what we're going to do is transition from there into ways that you can get started now, ways you could get started tonight when you get home, or we could actually just take a break at 7 o'clock and take some action together. So the first thing I want to talk about is phone calls. So how many of you are, you're on Facebook? You're getting all the, yeah, okay. And how many of you are, getting these emails, part of one of these things like the We're His Problem Now worksheet or the daily action from Vogue? Who's like getting those? Anybody? Yeah, okay, so some of you already sort of are getting into this groove of the phone calling. And I put those resources on the back of the piece of paper if you want to sort of get yourself into this loop. Okay, so why, who are we calling when we want to complain about something? So who do we call when we are frustrated with a nomination or a proposed piece of legislation, or something else that we feel like we should be, yes, wait, yes.
Senators,
call our senators,
representatives.
call our congressmen, okay, perfect. Who else? Who else have you called? Who have you called when you got mad?
I actually called the White House.
You called the White House,
White
great.
House, yep.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Friends.
You call your friends,
Yeah.
excellent. Yep.
I called the Justice Department.
Called the Justice Department after the election. Okay, great. Okay, I like we call my friends. That actually is more useful than you think it is. So yeah, we call elected officials. And when you call elected officials, where are we calling? Where have you called? Yeah, you call her in DC or, yeah? And you call the local office? Okay, great. Okay, perfect. So calling elected officials, it's always a good idea. And have you ever called elected officials that aren't your elected officials? You call Paul Ryan sometimes and yell at him? Yeah, okay. You can do that. It's okay. Okay, so here's, this to me is like the very first and very most fun thing that all of us do at 7 o'clock when I stop talking, or now if you're a multitasker, is save some phone numbers into the speed dial of your phone, which you have in your pocket or purse right now. I like Suzanne Bonamici's district office. If there's one down here, call that one. If the only one that is reachable is the one in Beaverton, put that in there. Definitely put her DC office in there too. Definitely put Senator Merkley's office in the Willamette Valley in your phone, and Senator Wyden's office in the Willamette Valley in your phone, and put their DC offices in your phone too. And you've just removed a pretty big barrier to you taking action when it's time to take action, just by having those things saved into your phone. So who has actually called one of these offices before? Who wants to tell us what happens when you, yeah, go ahead.
It's someone answers, I guess, an aide and is very polite and says, thank you, I will pass that along to the senator.
Yes. Yes, if you are calling Washington, D.C., the answer of who answers the phone is a 22-year-old Grant High graduate, or maybe a 22-year-old Beaverton High graduate. A very nice, very polite young person who is usually from Oregon, and their entire job is to do what? Who knows what happens? Anybody know? Yeah, they sort of take a message, but really what they're actually doing is making a mark in an Excel spreadsheet. Sometimes it's on a Post-it note, and it's impossible to describe how low-tech this entire system is, and it's incredibly important. And do not let anyone tell you that it's a waste of time to make phone calls to supportive lawmakers. There are spreadsheets and Post-it notes happening in every single office at every level of government, from the county commission here, to the state, and all the way up into Congress and the White House. And those check marks add up. They add up. You saw what happened when Congress tried to get rid of an ethics office after the election. That you know, that decision was not reversed because of media attention. It was reversed because of phone calls. They work. They work. And they are not scary. And if I had a smaller group here, we would all pick up the phone and try one right now. When you make a phone call, let's say we want to talk about reproductive freedom, and the issue on the table is defunding Planned Parenthood at the federal level. Is it going to happen next week? Probably. Let's call today, tomorrow, tonight when we get home. Let's call our Congress people. We'll call Representative Bonamici, we'll call Senator Wyden, and we'll call Senator Merkley and say, you know, I strongly oppose the defunding of Planned Parenthood at the federal level. The organization provides services to low-income families and people of color across the country, services that go far beyond abortion services, and they are critical. Blah, blah, blah. One sentence, okay? You don't have to be able to rattle off the amount of funding that Planned Parenthood receives. You don't have to be able to rattle off the immediate negative impact of the organization's funding being cut. You don't have to defend your statement, you just have to make it. One sentence is fine. You could actually call tonight and say, I strongly oppose the defunding of Planned Parenthood at the federal level. And then after that comes, my name is Jen Lynch, and my zip code is 97201. And that's all that they really need to know. You don't have to say anything like, I'm a constituent, or I'm a taxpayer. Yeah, we're all taxpayers. Most of us are taxpayers. Some presidents are not taxpayers. Many of us are taxpayers. What's important is a quick statement of your position, your name and your zip code. And it should get to be like a muscle for you. You know, you're not gonna do it unless you have practiced. You're not gonna do it unless you have practiced. And if you look in your handout, on the back page of the little handout I gave you, I didn't mean for these two handouts to look almost the same. The one I gave you says actions you should be familiar with at the top of the page, and it says phone banking. If you go to the back page, there's a list there that says other ideas. The first three things on that list are all phone call lists. You guys didn't get one? Okay, there's some at the back too. First three things on that list are all daily or weekly phone call opportunities. All of these organizations have created a source of daily actions or weekly actions. They send them to you in a variety of methods, via email, or if you do the daily action, they will text it to you. And they make making phone calls incredibly easy. They'll give you a script. They'll tell you exactly who to call, what to say, and when to do it. And all of a sudden, you are part of a very loud voice. And it took, I don't know, how long does it take? 60 seconds, maybe? Maybe? It takes longer for the phone to ring than it does for you to get the words out of your mouth. And so what about call? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what do you think is more powerful, a letter? Because every
Yeah.
time I've written a letter, they respond.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Absolutely.
Versus a phone call.
It's a good question. So the phone call's fast, right? So why do we make phone calls? Well, partially because we want them to be fast. You mail a letter to Washington, D.C. It goes to a central mail processing facility where it's screened for anthrax. I did an event in Oregon the last week of January, had hundreds of people make Valentines for Senator Merkley and Senator Wyden. I was in DC in April and those Valentines hadn't yet arrived at their office. So if you're going to mail a letter, mail it to them here in Oregon. It doesn't go through the same mail processing. So speed is one reason. Second reason, whomever said call your friends. So that's the other reason. I am, as you know, part of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. One of the things that we do better than almost anybody is call all our members and ask them to pick up the phone and call Congress, or ask them to pick up the phone and call a state rep. You know, and this could be something that Action Together decides to do. As you build your list, hopefully when you came into this room you signed something that has your name and your phone number and your email address on it. As the lists get built, the lists get activated. And the folks that I have on this grid for you are all folks that have lists. One person who's motivated to make a phone call to their elected official is usually also motivated to call a couple of friends and ask them to do the same thing. And when the things get really powerful is when those friends are in other states or other jurisdictions. So we use moms in Portland to call other moms in Paul Evans's district to the west of Salem, and ask them to pick up the phone and call him. And that is how small lists become loud noises. Yeah.
How effective is it to make a phone call and a letter versus doing one or the other versus doing 7 letters and 27 phone calls?
Totally.
Do you get counted multiple times?
So the letters...
You pretend to be someone else?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. Oh, so the letters, letters are a great idea. Handwritten letters especially are a great idea. And they work best when they are coordinated. So you feel in your heart that Senator Merkley and Senator Wyden need to hear that it's incredibly important not to defund Planned Parenthood. Write a letter. Do it, for sure. Even better, invite 5 friends over for a glass of wine at 5:30 on a Tuesday. Sit down as a group, write 5 letters, and ask those people to go home and ask 5 of their friends to write letters to. So I think they're a good idea. I don't think that one of the voices necessarily counts more than the other.
But are you saying 5 of the same letters to the same person?
Yep, do it. Okay. Absolutely. And who else do you write letters to? I think letters is the second one on my list. No, it's the third one, but let's just do it. Who else do we write letters to besides elected officials?
Grandma.
Your grandma. Newspapers? Who's written a letter to the editor recently? Or an op-ed. Okay, yay, I've got one back there. Did you know that letters to the editor, so the last time I had an op-ed training was probably 2 years ago, and the statistic nationally was that 30% of letters to the editor published are written by women. And the statistic nationally is that 12% of letters to the editor submitted nationally are by women. We don't write letters to the editor, we don't write op-eds, and we should be doing it all the time, all the time. Again, are you motivated to make a phone call to ask your congressperson not to defund Planned Parenthood? Can you take the next step and turn that letter, or turn that phone call, turn that 3-sentence Facebook post that I know some of you are writing into a 3-sentence letter to the editor? I know you can do it. I know you can do it. And you should start sending them. And yes, it's okay if they say the same thing. It's okay if they're short. It's okay if you are borrowing language from one of the partners, one of the fantastic organizations that I use here. What's important is your name attached to the message. You live here, you matter, and you vote, and your voice is at least as important as anybody's who is currently writing op-eds and letters to the editor. And you have to do it. I know that if you have time in your day to read Facebook for 20 minutes and write an angry Facebook post, you can turn that into a letter to the editor. And if it's a long Facebook post, you can turn it into an op-ed. I know you can do it. Resist that temptation to vent all of your anger in writing, in text messages, emails, and Facebook posts, and start doing it in places where that voice can be amplified. So personal letters to your lawmakers, and letters to the editor. Okay, so I skipped over one on my list, which is town hall meetings. Who's been to a town hall meeting? Excellent. Who's been to a town hall meeting of Suzanne Bonamici's? Good. Who's been to a town hall meeting of one of our senators when they've swung through town? Okay, excellent. What about your Oregon senator or your Oregon representative, your state rep or state senator? Anyone one of theirs? Okay. Only the true nerds have gone to those. That's fine. Okay, that's totally fine. Another challenge for you. Who knows where the Tea Party came from? Who can tell me like a 5-second history of the Tea Party? You don't want to tell that story? So the Tea Party came from town hall meetings. The Tea Party came from town hall meetings. The Affordable Care Act was announced. Conservative media did a fantastic job of asking folks, again, not just to stew in their living rooms, not just to make phone calls or post on Facebook, but to show up. And they showed up. Nationally, they showed up. And it would take 1 or 2 activists to shut down a town hall meeting. Now, would I encourage anyone to behave like that? Of course not. Of course not. I'm from Iowa. We would never do something like that. But was it, was it a tactic that turned a very small, very passionate group of people into something that looked and acted like a much larger movement? Yeah, absolutely. They leveraged events that were already taking place, and they used those to their advantage. Town hall meetings get advertised. They take place in public places. Dozens of people show up. They let one person's voice sound a lot louder than that person's voice, again, posting away in the dark on Facebook. So one suggestion I would posit to you as we move into sort of the more tactical part of this meeting tonight is to think about a town hall strategy. All of you should be on the email list for both senators, for your representative, Suzanne Bonamici, if you live down here. You should be on the email list for your Oregon State Rep and for your Oregon State Senator. All of those folks, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 5 in your network. All 5 of those folks have town hall meetings. They will send you an email, tell you when it is, and the most powerful activist networks are the activist networks that can take every single town hall meeting announcement and make sure that somebody is physically there in the room who represents that organization's voice. And so you're going to get the opportunity. I mean, they're all in town right now. Representatives are all in town right now. Some of them are holding town halls now. The state reps and state senators are trying to hold town halls before the session starts in a couple of weeks. The opportunities are immediate. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to start doing this. And they're kind of fun. These elected officials always have a staff member with them. And that staff member might be somebody who actually cares about immigration rights or reproductive freedom or campaign finance. You may get a person who works for the elected official who knows exactly what you're talking about, who is ready for your support on that issue, and able to put a face with a name. And that's an opportunity that you get most easily, again, at a town hall meeting. And I hope that that's something that you will put on your personal list of goals for Q1. So your Q1 goals when we walk out of here are things like putting all those folks in your speed dial, turning one Facebook post into a letter to the editor, and going to one town hall meeting at some level of government. And so let's talk about the last one, petitions. Who has signed a petition since, oh my gosh, you're kidding. Was it online that you signed it by any chance? Yeah, that's a bummer, right? Because what happened? Do you know? Don't know. It sort of felt like maybe you were putting your name on an email list. Feels good. In that first minute, it feels pretty good. And should you do it? Yeah, sure. You should definitely do it. So who has been part of who has been a petitioner? Who has walked around in the streets with a clipboard? Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Oh,
how was that? Is it fun?
Well, it's interesting.
It's interesting, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Who has delivered signatures on a petition? Yeah, you've done it? Okay, good. So that's what should happen. So that is what should happen. I like petitions. And what I like even more is this, standing in the street with a clipboard and having a conversation with your mouth with somebody who is considering signing it. Petitions give you a fantastic opportunity to connect with other Oregonians, with your neighbors, with your friends, with other voters in your district. Petitions can be fantastic ways to break the ice, having a conversation about politics or policy with a stranger. You don't get that opportunity online. You don't get that opportunity online. It's great to send an email. It's great to click on them. Anytime you have the opportunity to take petition activity offline, I strongly recommend doing it because how do you build consensus. It's always one conversation at a time. It's not via email. And delivering the petitions. Has anybody like worked for anyone worked in a political office? Sort of, okay, yeah. Do you remember like what it looks like when they come in, when this pile of papers come in? So it's not a small thing. I personally have been part of petition deliveries with Everytown for Gun Safety, with Americans for Responsible Solutions, with the Oregon Alliance for Gun Safety, with Moms Demand Action. And when we bring petitions, when these things actually show up at offices, we tell the person that we are delivering the petition to that exactly where everybody is. You know, these are your constituents, here are the zip codes that they live in. We often give them names and email addresses so they can follow up with people directly if they want. It's real. The rubber, if it's a reputable petition gatherer, the rubber does hit the road, and it does make a difference. And again, you know, these are great tactics, especially when they are done in the right way by the right organizations. Now, should you be setting up your own petition when you want to start sort of gathering support for an idea? Like, yeah, sure, do it. Again, my strong suggestion is that you take advantage of the petition's ability for you to create a face-to-face, one-on-one conversation opportunity with another voter. Okay, so those are my 4 favorite political actions, things that you could already be doing or might start doing. And I want people to sort of raise your hand and tell me some other things that you've done, other political actions that you've taken for the campaign or otherwise. Yes?
Just public comments at commissioners' meetings.
Attending a meeting. Okay, excellent. At a hearing or testifying. Yes, that's great. Being part of the comment period. Okay. What else? Yeah.
Picketing. I started the Occupy movement here in McMinnville.
Sweet.
Way back when.
Walking around with a sign. Okay.
Yeah, lots of people walk.
Not just you. Okay. Who else? Other political actions you've taken?
Marches.
Yeah. Who's marching on this weekend? Anyone doing the anarchist march on Friday? They're closing down my office building because of it. No? Okay. Great. You should march. Yes.
Get involved with community television.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's good. Community media. Everyone who said that everyone who complained about corporate media, fight back, right? Make your own media. Yes?
I'm in the middle of reading a book that appears to be having a problem with the Yamhill High School book reading list.
Oh.
So I am reading it so that I know actually what it says.
Okay.
It's actually 8th grade, and I'm on the school board. So I welcome.
So I'm reading it.
Okay. Holly's political action. Running for the damn school board. Anyone else? Elected official? All right. There's another one back there. Good. Okay. Running for office. I'm going to get back to that one, but yep. Anyone else? Political action you've taken? Yes.
Well, I write songs.
Okay,
and share
good.
them with people.
Excellent. Excellent. Hopefully on YouTube too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Good. Canvassing. Anyone going door to door? Okay. Excellent. Especially the people who are running for things.
I went to the state to talk to a representative.
You go down there. Okay, great. This is a perfect lead-in to where we are going next. So I've got 15, 20 minutes. So I'm going to talk about going down there. That's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so you're here because you're part of Action Together Oregon. That's great. And you're here because probably something about the words action and doing it together, you know, was appealing, right? You're tired of reading about it. You're tired of posting about it. You're tired of clicking on links. And you're ready to actually start doing something. So I would posit to you that in the post-November 9th world, the place where you're going to be able to take a lot of action is right here in Oregon. We have one of the only progressive state legislatures and progressive governorships in the country. We are a leader on a number of issues, from reproductive freedom to the climate to gun violence prevention to you know, access to health care. Yes, absolutely. Educated. We are getting it done. And we are a good place for you to start flexing this muscle. Oregon is a good place for you to start setting an example. And you're going to get the opportunity to do a lot of it in 2 weeks. February 2nd is going to be here before you know it. So what happens when the legislature is in session? Well, we get a lot of opportunities to go down there. So let's say you're thinking about your spring. I have for you in this handout a list of a whole lot of organizations here in Oregon. My hope is that as you look down this list, you're able to find organizations that map to those 3 issues that you talked about in your, when I asked you to introduce yourself. 3 issues. I don't know, maybe it feels small to you or maybe it feels like too many. But that's where I think you should aim right now. Let's pick 3. Let's pick 3 things that you are going to be, you know, a conscious action taker on. And it's okay if those change after the end of a legislative session. You're like super fired up about revenue reform in 2017, and then maybe we get it done, and so you move on to something else for 2018. Totally fine. I have an activist friend who I called early on in my work with Moms Demand Action, and right after some sort of horrible mass shooting tragedy, of which there have been so many, and asked her if I could get her support on a specific piece of action, and she said, you know what, it's actually not in my top 10. And I was like, wow, that's a bummer, but 10 feels like a lot. 10 feels like a lot, and I don't know how she does it. She's a professional. So my suggestion for you is 3. Now, who's on this list? All of these are nonpartisan opportunities for issue-based action. You are welcome to take partisan action. If you are a member of a political party here in Oregon, you obviously have the right to participate in a formal way with that party. If you're a Democrat, you can become a PCP. You can start going to your monthly county party meetings. There are lots of ways that you can plug into the partisan system in order to take action with your party. But if you want to do issue-based organizing, most of these organizations are explicitly nonpartisan. So at the top there, I have, of course, my personal favorite of all of these is Moms Demand Action. And part of the reason why I put them at the top of the list is because so much of what we do is about activism training alongside action taking. So when you become a member of Moms Demand Action or the Oregon Alliance for Gun Safety or frankly Ceasefire Oregon, any of these organizations, all of them are great at encouraging you or somebody in your neighborhood to throw a house party so you can start getting together with your neighbors and learning about actions you can take. Building lists in your neighborhood so you can activate your neighbors, and we'll teach you how to do it. Showing up. So, I show her up. She's back there. So, Moms Demand Action will be holding a lobby day in Salem in March. Most of the organizations that I've listed on this, I'm just sort of flipping down the list, almost all of them are actually either hosting their own lobby day or participating in their in somebody else's lobby day between February 2nd and the beginning of April. Who's been to a lobby day in Salem before? Anybody? Okay, another Q1 goal. I want all you guys to at least consider signing up for one because you live, so how long does it take to get to Salem from here?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, right?
40 tops.
Well, you have to
Okay,
park.
and you do have to park, and there's only that one lot with the, they changed the meters, there's credit cards now. Okay, even, no excuses not to go to Salem. So these organizations have lobby day opportunities. What that means is, on a weekday, someday when the legislature is in session, they will organize anybody who wants to come to Salem. All of them have a training in the morning. So you sit in a room like this, and an organizer like me will stand at the front of the room and say, you know, I'm from Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon. Today we're going to lobby on, we're going to do some citizen lobbying on behalf of access to, you know, reproductive services here in Oregon. Here's your one-page talking point sheet. that lists exactly the bill that we are talking about today, the reasons why Planned Parenthood Advocates of Oregon either supports or opposes that bill, and some follow-up information that the lawmaker can take with them after the meeting. And then they will say, okay, you get Paul Evans at 12:30, you get, Sarah Gelser at 1 o'clock. They said make all of the appointments for you, and you go into your lawmakers' offices in a very small group of people, 1 to 5 people, and you read from your talking points and have a conversation either with that elected official or their staff member, and then you are done. The entire process takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and what is the most powerful way that you can contact a lawmaker? Face-to-face. It floats all the way to the top, above letters, above phone calls, above attendance at a town hall meeting. You appearing in their office and talking to them about a specific issue is the greatest power that you have as a citizen activist. And I feel confident that if not all of these organizations, the vast majority of them will give you the opportunity to do that here in Oregon. And some of these organizations will give you the opportunity to do it nationally. Who belongs to a labor union? Who's a teacher? Nurse? Yeah? Okay. So unions and trade organizations and other sorts of interest groups often have opportunities for you to do that exact same action at the federal level. It is the most fun thing that you can possibly imagine, showing up in Washington, D.C. on the same day as Planned Parenthood advocates from all over the United States who all want to talk to Congress about access to reproductive services for all women. And when you start making yourself a part of these organizations, those opportunities start to present themselves to you. I know when I go to DC for meetings about once a year, I schedule meetings with all of our electeds here, even the ones who don't. So Representative Bonamici is always lovely to meet with, even though I don't live in her district. And I am always told that I am the last person who was also in DC talking to them about background checks at the federal level for every single gun in America. So we here in Oregon do not often schlep out to DC to talk to them about issues. And you should think about doing it. You should think about doing it. These organizations and some of the national ones that I haven't listed here give you those opportunities. Okay, let's see, what else? What else is on this list? House parties, we sort of talked about, some of these will ask you to, who's done that? Hosted a house party. Okay, when you get asked to do one of these, and I think you should start doing them for Action Together, they don't have to be about raising money. In fact, I would suggest that they not even be about raising money. House party gives you the opportunity to do something like we've done here with a group of 5 of your neighbors, or 10 parents from your kids at school, or 6 people from your church, or your bridge group. It gives you the opportunity, again, to have one-on-one conversations about a political topic in an environment that is very safe, conducive to question asking, and allows people the flexibility to ask questions and have a conversation. A lot of the organizations that I've listed here have existing house party programs, and if they don't, you can say, you know what, I'd be willing to have a house party. And they will, all of them will say, that's delightful. I will send a speaker to your house. All you have to do is put out the cheese cubes and a pitcher of juice, and we'll get it done. So let's see, letter writing, lobby days. Who's a member of the League of Women Voters? Anybody? Oh my gosh, you guys. League of Women Voters has the very best, so a lot of these organizations do candidate endorsements as part of their work, help Oregon voters learn how candidates stand on issues of concern and make recommendations as to how Oregonians should vote if they would like to vote for candidates who are pro and con on a certain issue. The League of Women Voters has one of the very best candidate research training programs nationwide. So if you want to learn how this gets done, how candidates get selected, how they get supported and endorsed, and how those endorsements translate into getting the candidate's message out, on election day and before. League of Women Voters can teach you all of that, and they are among the very, very best at putting volunteers to work on committees and researching issues, making sure that the candidates' positions on those issues are very crystal clear, and making endorsements. So I like them, again, as a nonpartisan, fantastic training opportunity. Okay, let's see. Petitions. I think I got all of them. Okay, so let's jump all the way down to the bottom and talk about the other ideas, things you're doing now. So those first 3 bullet points are things that have all popped up since the election. And full disclosure, I don't do any of them, but they're not a bad idea. So all 3 of those, we're his problem now. They do an action a week. Right now it's about Jeff Sessions. The daily action, that one you can either sign up online and they'll send you an email, or you can text the word daily in all capitals to that 228-466. They will text you the phone number that you are going to call and a very quick blurb about what you're going to say when you make that phone call. If you want to get practiced in making phone calls, feeling like that's something that you're comfortable doing, sign up for this thing. You know, you don't have to do it every day, but you happen to be, it's the end of your workday and it's like 4:58, you need something to do, that's the perfect time to be using tools like that. Fight Trump has a weekly action. I know we just dipped out of the realm of nonpartisan when we got down to these bullet points, so apologies. My Civic Workout is a nonpartisan tool. That's something that I believe existed before the election. So My Civic Workout, anyone a high school teacher? Yeah. So it's a fantastic website with lots of resources about what it means to be an active participant in American democracy, and they will send you suggestions that will map almost exactly to the list of things that we've talked about at the top of the meeting. These are ways that you can take actions. These are specific things you can do in order to use those tactics. Okay, so what else? The Progressive Change Campaign Committee mailing list. Anyone heard of the PCCC? Okay, good. Usually people are like, I don't know who they are. The PCCC, they call themselves the Elizabeth Warren wing of the Democratic Party. So they did a few endorsements. They are very state focused. They get it, that the way that you build strength is by identifying candidates early at the local and county level, supporting them as they move into state legislatures and into statewide office, and then being there for them when they make that pivot to run for federal office. They get it. It's a long game, and it requires cultivation of talent starting very early. And they understand that talent isn't just about the name at the top of the ticket, it's about the people behind that name. They train staff people, they train media people. They work hard to make sure that the sophistication of progressive activists is right up there with every sort of corporate party member and candidate who is on the ballot. So I suggest you sign up for their mailing list and learn about what they are working on. Everybody who complained about the corporate media should be getting the Think Progress newsletter and the Media Matters newsletter. Media Matters hires disgruntled young ex-journalists to spend a lot of their time scrutinizing the corporate media for misinformation and disinformation. And they do a better, these folks are issue organized, so they work hard to make sure that the messages that are incorrect or misleading are being held in check. And I think they are, a very important check on, that folks like Snopes get all the credit for the fact-checking. Media Matters, I think, does it with a level of nuance and sophistication that's unmatched. And part of that is, again, because they hire former journalists to do that work. Okay, volunteer with your political party. I think you should do that. You should do that. It's important. New Leaders Council. Anyone heard of them? Okay, so let's say you aren't totally certain that you want to be a politician, but you feel like you can lend something to this. This might be something that you want to do either part-time or full-time. The New Leaders Council, and they just accepted a new class, and so therefore the application process will be starting again in 6 to 9 months, does a multi-month training about sort of the intersection of advocacy and policy. So they train leaders who are ready to either step into a policy development role as the head of an organization, or the head of a think tank, or even a representative from someone like a labor union or a faith community. And they train folks who do want to be elected officials someday. It's a great organization. It's a huge nationwide network, and a great privilege to be a part of. And you should run for office, right? Anyone want to run for office? Yay! Okay, do it. Yay. Okay, so let's say you think you might want to run for office, or you're too embarrassed to admit that in this room. So there are lots of ways that you can get trained to run for office. Dudes, sorry, you actually don't have a lot of ways. Labor candidate school. So the labor candidate school is open to non-union members. You have to ask super nicely and think of a way in, but they will train you. If you can make a case that you are, on their side and ready for that opportunity, and you can't find anything else, Labor Candidate School will take you on. There was a guy in my Oregon Women's Campaign School 2 years ago who ran for state rep in Newburgh, a man, I can't remember his name. They also will take pity on men who have exhausted other resources. Emerge. Emerge is a statewide program. The current class is running right now, which again means that applications are going to open up in 6 months. Emerge is a nationwide program. They're in 16 states right now. They obviously need to be in all 50. That trains progressive women to run for office with very tactical, practical advice. They connect you with all the folks who can help you run a successful campaign here in Oregon, and they are a fantastic network as well. The PCCC, we already talked about them. They train leaders in Vote, Run, Lead for the ultimate, like, you're too afraid to even come into a room and say that you might be thinking about it. Vote, Run, Lead does it all online. You can just fill out a form and start watching YouTube videos, basically, about how you might put together a campaign for office someday. So if it's something that you're thinking about dipping your toe into, they're a great place to start. Yeah.
She should run?
She should run, absolutely. Say it, yeah. Yes, I am not familiar with them. There's also one that's run, by a university in, I think it's Yale. I mean, there are definitely other, leadership programs that are out there.
She should run program because it's an online incubator and there are support groups on Facebook.
Yes.
You go through actual exercises of
Yes.
writing your
Totally.
talking about yourself.
Right, and that sort of, again, that flexing those muscles, practicing these skills is incredibly important. I will always err on the side of things that involve speaking with humans in a room rather than virtual, if at all possible. But yeah, if it's like that's where you need to start, do it. And then I put on there joining a board of directors. Who serves on the board of directors of a nonprofit organization right now, either political or not? Okay. Think about doing it. Think about doing it. Oregon's nonprofits are where the rubber hits the road. Oregon's nonprofits are who are going to be bearing the burden if the federal government gets out of the business of creating a safety net for every American. Oregon's nonprofits are going to be responsible for playing watchdog on Oregon's most vulnerable citizens. Our nonprofits are going to be responsible for harnessing the resources of Oregonians in order to keep all of us safe and healthy and fed and housed and educated and cared for. It's going to fall on the burden is going to fall on nonprofits. And if you're in this room, I'm gonna take a wild guess that relative to a lot of Oregonians, you have a great deal of wealth and a great deal of power. And you're in a position to use it. And the easiest way to do it is to say that you will take a leadership and oversight position with a nonprofit whose mission calls to you because they need your help. They always do. They always do. And you can start feeling like you have a part in keeping Oregonians safe and healthy now, today. Okay. So that's, yes, do it.
So I'm struggling a little bit, Jan.
Yeah.
In that we're a blue state.
Yes.
And how effective is it to try and get input to your senator or congressman
Right.
when they probably already agree with you?
Yeah,
I agree.
So is part of our mission then to try to reach out to senators and congressmen from red states? I mean, I don't think they always even take your input.
Yeah, sometimes they don't.
I know, statewide though, we're a blue state.
Yeah, okay, so that's a great, it is a great question. This is like back to like the who has called Paul Ryan and complained to him.
Yeah, well, Paul Ryan, I understand. What about a senator from Alabama or
Right.
whatever?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, can we be effective with those folks?
So the answer is, as usual, sometimes, and it depends. So two things that we can do. First of all, I will tell you the story of gun violence prevention. We live in a blue state. We have a progressive legislature. Every time Oregonians are polled, between 78 and 85% of Oregonians say that they believe that there should be a background check on the sale of every single gun in Oregon. So when it's time for Oregon lawmakers to start answering the phone about how they, and listening to constituents call and talk to them about new gun laws, folks who support a background check on the sale of every gun in Oregon are outcalled by folks who oppose that 10 to 1. 15% of the state, and they are outcalling folks who support common sense gun laws 10 to 1. So we have a passion gap problem. And some of that is, again, a derivative of, well, my lawmaker probably agrees with me, and so it's maybe not necessary for me to speak out. And hopefully what November has shown you is that it's your right to speak out, and it's your obligation to speak out, and your lawmakers are counting on you speaking out. They are absolutely counting on it. It does your state senator no good to point to a poll of Oregonians that says that 80% of us support, maintaining the current level of funding for the Affordable Care Act Oregon Health Exchange, when they don't get the phone calls that back that up. So you have to do it, even if you think that they are with you. Now, calling other folks. Yes and no, it depends. Sometimes, so here in Oregon, just as an example, a bill is in a committee. That committee has a chair. The chair of that committee, may or may not be in your district. Can you call the chair of that committee and tell them that you would like the bill to come to a vote in committee? Yeah, absolutely. Because you're calling them in that capacity. And that works at the federal level as well. There were probably some of you who called, Senator Wyden and said, well, as chairman of the finance committee, then it's your responsibility to investigate Donald Trump's finances. So situations like that where we're clearly calling a committee chair. Sometimes it feels a little, you can feel a little lost in the woods though, right? You hear the name of a lawmaker on OPB, and they're a senator from Wyoming, and they're throwing a wrench in the works. This is when membership in a nationwide progressive organization starts to make those decisions a lot more clear for you. How does it make it, how do we actually turn our passion into, an amplified voice? It is through that power of organization. At Moms Demand Action, one of the things that we do is leverage our members in blue states where there maybe isn't quite so much work to do, to call our members in red states or people that we think might be supporters and ask them to in turn pick up the phone and call their elected official. When you are a member of a large national organization, you get those opportunities. And yes, if any of you have tried to email a senator from another state, you know, may have gotten stuck on this like web form that says, you know, sorry, we don't accept emails from non-constituents, or sorry, like you have to have a valid zip code in order to send this thing in, which is of course patently ridiculous. They're making laws that affect all Americans. If they were making laws that only impacted their state, that would be one thing. All of them have published email addresses online. You are welcome to email and call them. Now, will they, you know, weight your voice lower than that of a constituent? Probably. And if I were choosing where to spend my time, I would keep it focused here in Oregon and never feel like it's not worth it because our electeds are on our side. It actually makes it extra worth it, because the more that they know that we are with them, the more that they will feel confident and strong in taking those positions and being leaders at the national level doing it.
But it's good to call people out of state that you know and tell them to speak. I mean, my mother lives in Kansas.
Call your mom. I know I was going to say, call your mom.
My mom lives in Kansas, and I call her and I read her stuff, and I just got her to get a book, and tell her to tell her friends at Domino's, and hey, it may not work, but until, you know, somebody says something instead of everybody just goes along.
Yeah. I am with you. I grew up in Iowa. I refuse to concede the entire center of this country. Let's not do it, right? Like, let's make sure that, you know, progressive activists nationwide feel equally empowered to speak out to their elected officials who are on their side and who are not. Okay. Anyone else? Questions?
What we would like to do at this point is we would like to explain the structure of Action Together Oregon Yamhill Valley. We've put a lot of work into formulating some goals, and we're down to a tactical level at this point at the teams, and we need people on our teams to help us then divide those tactics into tasks, and so that we can start our work here. Our focus has been from the beginning right here where we live, our community that went red, and where we feel like we really can have the most impact. So we're just going to split up into the teams now?
Yeah, just to say, sorry, my voice is still a little squeaky, but I think Jen just gave us this great overview of all the small things we can do to take action. I think listening to you and then thinking about what we've done in our team meetings, I think a lot of the work we've identified in our team meetings is about just bringing up the general understanding of even where we are today. What organizations are in our area and what kind of help do they need? What is the makeup of our elected offices, not just our state senators or our federal representatives, but our county commissioners or our school boards. So a lot of our early, I wanted to speak to this because I think it's going to feel a little jolting to come from this to look at our tasks ahead of us, which are very, there's a lot of research and information gathering, I think, that we're looking to do. But we're really looking to bring up the general knowledge base, I think, of all of us, so that we are able to identify, who needs to get a phone call and about what, and make sure that everyone in our group. I'm so thrilled that this room is full today, but there are almost 230 people in our Facebook group, and we haven't done an awful lot of pushing to get more people, and so we're really excited at the possibility of a large number of people who can make those phone calls and carpool down to Salem and have a meaningful conversation.
Everything that you do from here on out starts with one of those pieces of paper. Every meeting, every house party, every lobby day, every time you guys see each other at Starbucks, you're getting out one of those pieces of paper and filling it up.
And I would say, even if you've done it before, do it again.
Just do it again.
Do it again. Because that's a way for us to track how many people are here. And at the end of the year, we want to be able to look back and say, this is the participation that we had through the course of the year. We may have several reasons to do that. One thing that I would like to pick up on what Jen said is that everybody in this room has a tremendous amount of power and a tremendous amount of influence. And a lot of us don't think that about ourselves, but we do. We absolutely do. And we have put together an infrastructure. Now is the time we're going to start to use it. So let's break up into our teams. Let's get our team leads to stand up. We're meeting as needed at this point. For some of our groups, the actions will take place outside of meetings. Some will be more meeting-centric, and some of the teams will be less meeting-centric. So real quickly, this group started it started as Pantsuit Nation. We were, Pantsuit Nation, as most people know, was a national movement, a national Facebook page that grew very quickly and kind of was a outpouring of grief after the election and was a great touchstone for people who were like-minded. And that group, Pantsuit Nation, decided to go into the nonprofit direction. So if you're a nonprofit, you can't do political work. So we decided to partner with or affiliate with Action Together, which is also a national organization. They, at this point, might even be less organized on the national level than we are here in Yamhill Valley. So we have a lot to be proud of in what we've been able to accomplish here in a very short time. The national organization has state chapters. There is an Oregon state chapter that I think it's still unclear yet as to what they will deliver to the sub-chapters, the regional chapters. But there are chapters all over the state. Of all the chapters in the state, including the big metro area in Portland, we are the second largest. So we are seriously far advanced in terms of our organization and our infrastructure. So we are ready to hit the ground running. We put together a mission statement, which is on one of the several pieces of paper that you have on your table. Some people that are here have heard this before many times, but it never hurts to hear it again. So I'll just read it. Action Together Oregon Yamhill Valley is an organization of engaged residents and friends of Yamhill Valley who believe in developing a community that both respects and creates equity, inclusion, safety, and freedom from fear and hate for all. Our purpose is to educate and inform and to actively participate in the creation of a local climate in support of these beliefs. It's very broad, but we are a social justice organization. We're here to educate, inform, and actively participate in the creation of the community that we would like to see. We have outlined, we have a steering group, and that steering group outlined the objectives for the first year. This was put together in one meeting, and so we have moved very quickly with a lot of this stuff. And there's been some going back and dabbing at the terminology and the words, but for the most part, this is as it was put together originally. So it started with a team of 2, Megan and I, and has now grown to this, and additional 200 people that are out there willing to do work. So we should all pat ourselves on the back, and we should all recognize our power and our influence. At this point, then, it makes more sense to address the teams. We decided to structure into 4 teams. We have a facilitation team, which is the kind of the back end and moving everybody in the same direction team. We have the bridge building team, we have the outreach team, and then we have the legislative and elections team. And what I'll do, I guess, is have a representative. Susan already had a chance to talk about the bridge building team and what they do. Megan and Amy Wilder head up the legislative and elections team. So if you guys want to briefly talk about what you do.
So the elections and the legislative team is really about our elected officials, engaging with them, tracking them, kind of what we were talking about with understanding what is the makeup of our elected officials, who do we call, when do they meet, how do we show up for their meetings, kind of understanding what issues are on the table at all different levels, from city and school board levels all the way on up. And as well as, I think an important piece will be kind of identifying areas where we can make inroads. Maybe the candidates aren't as progressive as we would like, and to kind of bring up leaders or identify leaders that we can support ultimately to support our values, our progressive values that we're looking for here. Let's see, our goals are to ensure that our elected officials are supportive and reflective of the mission and values of Action Together Oregon Yamhill Valley, replace any non-supportive incumbents with chosen supported candidates, and prevent our elected officials from advancing decisions or policies that are not consistent with our values.
One of the team leads for the outreach team is not here this evening, so Janet Land is the co-lead for that.
And Barbara Curtis was not able to be here tonight. We had outreach met a week ago, so that's what qualifies me to speak to you right now. So the idea of the outreach is at the heart. Is that what was your terminology for it? The heart of the
eyes and ears.
Helping hands. Right. So this is to reach out to, first of all, before we reach and help be a safety net or to provide needs that aren't getting met for whatever reason in the community, the first goal is to get a clear understanding of what's already out in Yamhill County, what organizations are out there, because we don't want to don't want to recreate the wheel, and then to reach out to those organizations and see if they're needing help in some way. So in the early stages, we're going to be getting that information together of what nonprofit organizations are out there to meet, and then also folks that are on the committee, if they've got a heart for climate justice or someone finished that. I always get LGBTQ. That. Right. So if you've got a heart for any of those, then you could focus in on that organization, or you can just be on the committee and getting the broad view, and they're going to fill in the rest.
This team, the outreach team, is working with organizations in our community that are providing services. So exactly the list that Jen was giving to us earlier. And networking with those groups. And Susan's teams is networking instead with places like Linfield and churches and non-traditional and maybe places where we think we may not have an obvious inroad and we need to build bridges. So that's the difference between those two organizations, or two teams.
Quick question. You were talking there like service organizations. Would it also include organizations that are trying to affect policy?
That's the next team.
Oh, okay.
So actually, that's the legislative and elections team. Oh, most likely, yeah. I believe that's probably what you're. I mean, there may be
like
policy.
An example, there's an organization that's trying to push for universal single-payer health care or something like that.
I would say that probably falls under the legislative and elections team. And then the last team, and the best team, is the team I'm leading, which is, let me put a pitch in for this team right now. This team is, we are the heartbeat of the organization. So we will be doing a lot of back end stuff, so things like website, but we'll be doing a lot of communications as well. And our jobs will be basically herding cats. So we take all of the people in this room and all the people that are not in this room and point them all in the same direction so their voices go all in one place. So that's what we'll be doing as the facilitation team. Some of it is nerdy, I guess. Some of it is, I said this was probably a good team for introverts. A lot of it will be done outside of meetings. We will meet occasionally. But I anticipate I'm going to have a lot of introverts on the team, and I'm a super extroverted person. So this is a weird mix, but we'll get there. So that's where the four teams are. We have identified goals that are in alignment with the goals of the organization overall. What we'd like to do is break out into these four teams, and wherever your passions lie. You may do work with 2 teams or 3 teams or 4 teams, but wherever your main passions lie, where you really want to put your efforts, the team that you want to put your name beside, show up there. We'll gather around some of these small tables, and we'll take our goals and start to break them down into small bite-size. We have tactics, and we want to break those down into bite-sized actions that we can start taking action on things. Does anybody have any questions? Anything else, Megan?
No, I just wanted to say, while you maybe stand up and migrate towards the team leader who you think you want to work with tonight, there's some food and drinks in the back, and it might be a good chance to go grab some. Thank you so much to the people who brought those. We're so grateful. Thank you.
And Marla also left bumper stickers and signs, posters back there.
Maybe before we stand up anymore, we should just say thank you so much to Jen.
Yeah, I hope you made a little list in your head or on paper of the 4 things you're going to do before the end of March, which is when the quarter ends, and just start doing it. And I'm grateful that you're all here. Thank you.
All right, so apparently we all need to drink cider.
Drink cider and
the legislative team will be back where Amy is. Facilitation team. you.